Some more, I want to take a screenshot now of our webinar today. Please open some more. Okay. So this is I need all this as my, anything that we do, we have to report to the faculty. So I need all this proof. Yang lain open. Okay, funders ada. Denny Shaikal ada. Nurin, Sabrina, Hanis. Please open your camera for a while. Kalau lady sarung-sarung lah tudung tu. Cepat. Okay, I want to take. Yeah, okay, smile everyone. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Hold on, second page. So many students here. I need 2 pages. Okay, smile everyone. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I think more is coming. Too bad lah yang datang lewat tu tak ada gambar lah. But you must be here because at the end of the session, please listen and take notes. Because at the end of the session, I'm giving you a last assignment. Probably tonight lah. Because lepas ni ada lagi student taking exam actually. So maybe tonight I give you your last final assignment. Okay. And this week is also, actually today is our last class actually. This week is already week 14. Okay, with us again today, I have Faizia from PayNet, and I want to give the opportunity for him to introduce himself, as then straight away continue to lecture today. Today is considered as a lecture. Our lecture today is with industrial. It means a real people. And since we already finished most of our syllabus, the important thing and so on, today is more on the overview or a bigger scope of data visualization, data science, things like this lah. Mostly is more on the data science lah. It's not limited to data visualization and storytelling, so that you can see a bigger scope. And Faizia is currently doing his master lah with UM. That is generally about him. Later he will introduce himself more detail. Again, please take notes all the important points, because at the end of the class you have to answer a few questions as your last assignment. Okay, without waste our time, I pass the floor to Faizia. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Zainura. I hope everyone can hear me. I'll quickly share my screen. I hope I hope it's visible now. All right, give me a second. Okay, so good afternoon, students. So crafting your data journey, transforming numbers into narratives. So I would like to have this sharing session to be more of an interactive one. So before we start, maybe we can get, an idea of how many people here, how many students here are actually interested in data, right? Guys give me a bit of a reaction, like a thumbs up, if you are really interested in data. Okay, I can see like people raising their hand. Okay, good. All right, so crafting your data journey. Okay, amazing. I see a lot of reactions. All right. But before we start into that, I think I want to do some ice breaking lah, right? So who am I? My name is Faizia, and actually I completed my Bachelor in Civil Engineering in China. So it's a completely different field, not data science or not computer science. It's actually engineering. And currently I'm doing my Master of Data Science at University of Malaya. And a little bit of fun fact is that I speak 4 languages. So English, Malay, mestilah bahasa Melayu kan, bahasa kebangsaan, and Chinese because I studied in China. And let's make a bit of a quiz. Who wanna guess what's the fourth language? I'll try and speak and you guys can guess. Bonjour, comment ça va? Je suis très content aujourd'hui d'être là pour partager mes expériences en tant que data scientist. Alright, so you want to guess which language it is? So I did say bonjour. So the fourth language that I speak is French. Okay, so it's a very big passion of mine. Aside from working with data, traveling and all, I also very passionate with languages, especially French. And currently it's World Cup as well. So if you guys can guess, the team that I'm definitely supporting is definitely France. Okay, so that's a bit about me. And let's dive right into it, the main content of today, which is data. Okay, I currently work with PayNet. And PayNet, if you are not familiar, you might not know the name of the company, but you definitely very familiar with our products. So, if you go anywhere right now in your canteen or whatnot, when you go to to buy food and all, you scan the little QR code, the pink one, regardless lah, you guna Touch 'n Go or you use your Maybank or you use any CIMB bank. So those little QR codes, that is made by my company, PayNet. Or if you do online shopping, right, you go to Shopee and you check out, you buy anything, there's a final checkout, you purchase with FPX, that is also my company, which is PayNet, including my debit. If you go to anywhere and then there's a terminal and you just scan your bank card. Yeah. So essentially all the digital payments in Malaysia is processed by PayNet. All right. And PayNet is actually a company under Bank Negara, the centralized bank of Malaysia. And our goal is really to drive digital payments in Malaysia. And I think you guys have definitely also felt the transformative change, right? Let's say 10 years ago, 2016, Malaysia was still using cash, paying with, money, 1 ringgit, 2 ringgit. But right now, if you go out there, we see cash is sort of the past, right? Now digital payment is taking over and cash is the old thing lah. The future is all about digital payments. So what I'm trying to share is that digital transformation is real, and with digital transformation comes a lot of data, right? So in PayNet, typically we process around 20 to 30 million digital transactions every single day. So that relates to, I think, what you guys have learned as well, big data. Right, so one of the key concepts of big data is definitely volume, which my company does. We process 30 million daily, and that accumulates to around 10 to 12 billion in a year. And the data that we process is also in big variety, right? And it's very fast velocity because every single second, there's definitely people transacting every single second. So in PayNet, the work that we do, the work that I do is dealing with big data, specifically transactions. And when we talked about the realm of data, there's actually three core categories, right? So first you have data analytics, data science, and data engineering. And I'm very fortunate enough because in PayNet, I actually touch upon all of these three. All right. And they are overlaps between the three, but they are also quite distinctive on the specific role and work that they do. So first one, I think data analytics, which I think everyone here is very familiar with. So data analytics is analyzing the data and also visualizing it for the stakeholders, for people to understand what is hidden, the insights of the data. All right. So specifically in PayNet, I'll just touch through one by one, right? So specifically in PayNet, what I was working on is a project of analyzing digital payment rate of Ministry of Health facilities. So I think I like to share specifically what I do, right? Because I think it's important to bridge the gap on what you learn theoretically and all the data sets that you find on Kaggle, which is oftentimes very clean, versus the actual reality of data that you will face later in your job scope, the reality and how complicated, how dirty data can be. All right. So one of my projects was analyzing digital payment rate of Ministry of Health facilities. So think of clinic kesihatan, the hospitals that you go, we wanted to increase their digital payment rates. And then we noticed that we were funding them a lot of money. We were doing a lot of campaigns, but the digital payment rate was not increasing, meaning that it's sort of stagnant at like 50, 60%. So my job was to identify what was the reason and how can we further improve it, right? So Ministry of Health, all the clinics send us the data. What I have to do, I have to massage the data, I have to clean the data, and then I have to visualize it. And specifically, the tool that I use here was Power BI, right? So I get the data from our stakeholders, and then they provide us the monthly data like Excel and all, and then I have to transform it into a nice dashboard using Power BI so that I can get the actionable insights that I can convey back to my manager saying that, oh, why the digital payment rate in certain clinic was stagnating, right? Why is it not going up? So these are insights that I can gain from my Power BI dashboard. And to just share also a very interesting thing about data analytics is that you have to be familiar with the domain that you're in. Specifically, I was in a project dealing with healthcare, and there was a very interesting observation is that typically we know big hospitals. So big hospitals, the biggest one in Malaysia is HKL, Hospital Kuala Lumpur. And then intuitively, you know, common sense that if a very big hospital, they would process a lot of transactions because there's a lot of patients coming in every day. However, for my dashboard, I noticed an anomaly. Like I was analyzing and then it didn't felt right. How can Hospital Kuala Lumpur, such a big hospital, the biggest hospital in Malaysia, but then their proportion or their transactions that they process every day was actually on the lower side of things. So these are the things where I, as a data analyst, have to really analyze, really understand the domain and find these anomalies and convey them to my managers, saying that why is the data from such big hospitals so low? It doesn't make sense, right? Then we send back an email to our stakeholders, which is KKM, and say, can you guys reassess and recheck, is the data that you're sending to us correct? Because it's an anomaly, it shouldn't be this low, right? So those are the things that data analytics does, and you as a data analyst you as a data analyst should have that skill, right? So data analytics, it's more of analyzing data, doing visualizations, and then conveying insights. And very important as well, it's storytelling, right? Because you have so many data points, but at the end of the day, it's what's more important is how you convey them as opposed to what you have, right? They always say it's not really what you have, but it's really more towards how you say them, right? So very important here as well, storytelling. Next, moving towards the, I think definitely the sexiest part, which is data science, especially with the current boom of AI and all. Everyone is really interested in data science, you know, including machine learning, deep learning, then there's reinforcement learning, then there is this whole AI boom of LLMs and all. It's very, very exciting. All right, so data science, I would say it's sort of an extension of data analytics, right? So data analytics is looking at historical data and then coming out and insights and storytelling and what's happening with that historical data. Data science is sort of afterwards of it. It's an extension of data analytics. Means one, you have insights of your historical past. You can use those historical past data to do a prediction of the future. So data science, the real keyword here is really prediction of the future. Okay, so when I was in PayNet, I was in a very interesting program. It's a management program where I actually rotate 3 different teams. All right. So my first team, I was doing a lot of data analytics work for 6 months. Then I moved to a second team where I do more of the data science of things. And the work that I did was specifically in fraud, so detecting scams, right? I believe maybe some of the students here have also done similar projects where, there is transactions, then you build a model based on this data and transactions and then identify whether an account is a scam or not. So that's the exact project that I was working on in PayNet as a data scientist, right? But specifically, I think a very interesting project that I did was development of machine learning models to prioritize incidents. So because in Malaysia, there's a lot of scams actually going on in Malaysia, and it's around 100 to 200 scams incidents every single day. And then it gets reported to this platform called NFP, which PayNets. It's one of our product essentially. So basically you can think of it as in PayNet actually do receive, if you get scam or anything, you can actually call a scam center. It's called NSRC. So that scam center, they actually get around 100 to 200 reported incidents of scam every single day. But our resources are limited, right? You cannot put the same amount of time and resources to each single incident, because some incidents, if they lost more money, it's more prioritized, because you have to put more effort in those incidents that have more lost money, right? If you lost, for example, 100 ringgit, 200 ringgit compared to one that lost 10,000 ringgit, of course, you as an officer, you will put more emphasis and effort in the incidents or scams that loses more money, right? So my project, my specific task was to try and find a way, can we then have the model, instead of having the officer to manually assign an incident, whether it should be a low priority, medium priority, or high priority, can we have a machine learning model to do that instead? So basically, when a victim calls in and they say, oh, I got scammed, then they say, I got scammed maybe 10,000 ringgit. When did I get scammed? I get scammed 2 days ago. What kind of scam it is? Is it a love scam, investment scam, right? So based on this information alongside other information, this model will then give a classification or a label saying that, okay, this incident, because it lost this amount, it lost this volume of amount, it happened this time, it is a love scam, it involves how many accounts, so I will provide it a high priority, right? So that was the very first project that I worked in. And in every machine learning project or data science project, an incredibly important part of it is explainability, right? Because you can train your model, put in data, and then it comes out very nice performance, very nice score. Your precision, your recall, your accuracy is like, wow, very, very high, right? 90% and above. But if your stakeholders, they get the result, but they do not know why they get that, there's no explanation to that result, then it is the same as, not doing at all. I'll just give a very specific example. So because I work in fraud, and in fraud, we actually labels an account whether it's a scam account or not a scam account. And every time the model labels an account is scam or not, we actually have to provide evidence and explain why this account is a scam. So this is where model explainability comes in. We cannot just, give the officer that assess this account and say, oh, this account is scam, just trust me, like trust me, bro, right? Like, where's your sources? You need evidence to back up why do you say the model thinks or predicts this account as a scam. So this is where your model explainability comes in. You put in your evidence, you say, okay, this model thinks this account is a scam because this account has conducted a very high amount of transaction in a very short amount of time, right? So typically scam accounts, they receive 10,000 ringgit, then they directly withdraw that 10,000 ringgit in a very short time, right? So these are evidence that we then convey to our stakeholders or to the officer saying, okay, this is a scam account because look, there's evidence, there's this behavior, very suspicious behavior. Okay. And moving on is the statistical testing. If in data science, I think it is actually an intersection of three main core parts, right? So you have your domain knowledge, you have your programming language, and you have a very large important chunk, which is statistics. So in data science, you actually do a lot of statistics. Aside from building models, sometimes you also have to do like hypothesis testings. You have to come out a statistical test that says, I think I'll just provide an example to understand this better. So what we do in PayNet is we do testings of accounts that is mule and account that is like scam account. So mule account is basically scam account and non-scam account. So non-scam account are like accounts like me and you, the general public that uses their normal accounts. Scam account are accounts that involve in scam, right? And typically we can do a statistical testing or hypothesis testing between these two types of account. So for example, a simple one, let's say scam accounts, when they typically make their transaction at night, right? Let's say at night at a very suspicious time or a very abnormal time at 3 a.m. But a normal account, they do their transactions typically a normal behavior, like not at 3 a.m. or like 4 a.m. It's not suspicious, right? So then you need to come out with your hypothesis testing to test these two hypotheses. Maybe your hypothesis, it's like the technical one, there's the null hypothesis, there's the alternate hypothesis, right? So for example, your null hypothesis, you can say scam accounts do a lot of their transactions at 3 a.m. in the morning. And then non-scam accounts do not do transactions at 3 a.m. in the morning. So then you take all of this data and you do the testings and then you come out, the outcome will then you have to analyze the outcome and say, is the outcome statistically significant or not, right? Do scam accounts really do more transactions at 3 a.m. at a very suspicious time? So that is data science, right? So data science as a whole, it's extension of data analytics, where the keyword here is prediction. Data analytics analyzes historical data. Then you come with data science. It extends and it predicts the future. It do a lot of statistical testings and analysis. And moving on is data engineering. So data engineering is also very, very distinctive and very important in work in the realm of data. So you can think of it as, so data analytics, historical data, data science, future, predicting future, but sit below both of them is data engineering, because you have to consider and ask yourself, we have all this data coming in, where do this data actually come from and where do we store them, right? So data engineering is essentially, where do our data sources come from? Where do we store them? How do we create the pipelines, right? From source A to source B? And how do we make sure it's robust, right? Our pipelines does not break. And data engineering is where the big data comes in, the big four that you always learn about, right? Velocity, volume, variance, variety, and veracity, right? So data engineering really put emphasis on that. You want to make, so pipelines, okay, let me just go one by one. Development of data pipelines. So pipelines, in a physical sense, it's like your water pipe, right? Your water pipeline, you know, you go from source A to source B to your house, the water tank, and then it comes to your house. That's the pipe, right? The water pipe. So very similar in data as well. We have data pipeline. So instead of physical water or physical water pipe, it's now digital data. So then data pipeline is development of where the data is coming from, the source, and where do you want it to go, the destination. So giving an example, specifically in PayNet, because we process digital transactions every day. So the data source is then every single payment, every single digital payment that all consumer do. So if you scan your QR payment, right, then you put 5 ringgit, you buy a nasi lemak for 5 ringgit, 7 ringgit, you buy a teh ice for 2 ringgit 50 cent. So those transactions are then recorded. Then you have to ask yourself, where do we put these recorded transactions? Where is the source, right? That's just the raw source. But because my work specifically is doing fraud, right, combating fraud, then we have to ask ourselves, how can we take this raw source and transform it into data that the model can use to learn, right? Because we also have to think that the raw source, the data is usually in like 100 or even thousands of columns. The dimension is really, really high. But for a model, maybe it just need 20 columns. It does not need all the 100 columns, right? So the pipeline here is then you have to know where your sources is, where do you want the destination to be, how do you want the pipeline, what kind of processes you want it to be. Do you want it to remove certain columns? Do you want to, you know, data cleaning? So that is the, so this is more towards the infrastructure, but sometimes it does relate to it. As in, if you have heard of Kubernetes, right? It speeds up this virtual machine, right? So for example, you ask yourself, okay, so all the devices, a virtual machine to run that, but we then need a platform or a tool to help them manage the resources. So this is sort of Kubernetes, and when you construct a pipeline, you have to put a adequate amount of allocation of resources. You do not want to over provision, meaning maybe that pipeline just process 10 megabytes of data, but you put 24 gigabyte of RAM, right? It's over provisioning. You're putting too much resources on such a simple task. It's a waste of resources. So you also have to be optimal with your resources. So that's data engineering. And another thing is data quality and data validation. I think I want to like draw a comparison with what you usually do on projects. So usually in university project, including my project right now, because I'm taking a master's in data science, right? The project that we do, usually the data, we take it from Kaggle or we take it from the UCSI repository. And oftentimes this data is already very clean. And it's already very clean and you can directly use it for your project. But in reality, in industry, in PayNet, the data that comes in is oftentimes very dirty. To give an example, what dirty here means is that sometimes part of our data here, we actually capture, for example, the ID, so your NRIC of the payer, right? What's the ID number and all. But sometimes instead of putting the NRIC or your actual IC number, they put in maybe phone number, or they put in 000 or 0, or they put it on 999, which is not an accurate value because it should be the value of the actual user. But right now it's dirty. Instead of putting the actual NRIC or the IC number, it puts 99999, it puts 00000, or you put a phone number. So when you do data engineering pipelines, you also have to capture this kind of dirty data and you have to clean them and you have to validate them. So to summarize, in terms of the realm of data, we have these three big chunks, right? Data analytics, data science, and data engineering. Data analytics, it's historical data, analyzing, visualization, and then extension of it is data science. The keyword here is prediction. We do prediction based on historical data, and sit underneath it is sort of the data engineering. It's where it provides the data so that data analytics and data scientists can do their job, because the data comes from the data engineers themselves. They are the one that creates the pipeline that brings in the data from source towards the data scientists and the data analytics. All right, these are the three core data work or division in data. But actually, I would like also to highlight right now, aside from this, there's actually something called like data governance as well. So this is more on the policy side of things, just to give an exposure. It's more looking towards who the data owner is, of like data quality. It's a very policy perspective of data. There is no technical coding or whatnot. It's more towards data that comes in. We have to make sure it's private, it's confidential, because for example, I mentioned just now, the data that we have includes IC number of customer, right? We cannot, it's a very sensitive information of the customer. So we need governance. We need to make sure this it's sensitive information, it's not leaked out, there's no data breach, right? So we need to set a policy, a governance, a system around it. So this is falls under data governance, data policy, and it's also part of data, but it's more on a high level, non-technical part of things. All right, so this is more of the specific that what I explained just now. Just now was a very high level overview. This one is just taking an example of what I explained just now. So data analytics, I did a lot of dashboarding, and then I communicate insights. For example, I mentioned just now, a big hospital, but then the digital transaction is very low. So I have to communicate that anomaly insights to my managers. And also feature creation, right? So for example, the data that we receive from the hospitals or KKM is usually very little. It's just two columns, right? Two columns, how many transactions, how many digital transactions, how many cash transactions, right? So from there, I have to do some kind of feature engineering or feature creation where based on just these two information, I create the cashless penetration rate, basically feature creation lah, right? And the challenges here is to really clean and process the data and know what features to create and what to analyze. So this touch more upon your domain knowledge. And moving on to data science, as I mentioned earlier, I was doing specifically in project combating fraud. So we have to do build models that classify mule accounts, scam accounts, and it's big data analytics lah. Because we receive 20 to 30 million transactions per day. It's really, these are sort of what I do on a day-to-day basis in Pinet. All right, next is, so I've shared about me, right? I shared about what I did, my experience. Now I would like about you as well, the specific things that you can pick up starting from now, the skills, right? I call this, I sort of divide them into technical skills and power skills. Because as a good employee or someone that works in data, you not only need to be good at technical skills, so for example, your coding skills, your understanding of domain knowledge, but you also have to have the power skills or the soft skills, right? Because once you have done your analysis, you then have to convey it to your managers, you have to convey it to the team. So this is where the power skill comes in. All right. So I will elaborate one by one. The technical skills here. Yeah, the power, I call it the Fantastic Four, like Excel, Power BI, SQL, and Python. So Excel, I know it's not very sexy or fancy, but you'll be surprised. Actually, in real world industry, Excel is still very, very prevalent. And it's actually sort of dominated. I would say 90% is really a lot of it's Excel, because it's something that many people understand, right? And but when you talk about Excel, it's not just the fundamentals, but dive deeper into the pivot tables. How do you create visualizations and graphs using Excel? I think pivot table is a very key knowledge point to have that you have to really master with Excel. How do you, change a data from a long format to a wide format? How do you pivot it? How do you do aggregations, right? So pivot table, and then from the tables, you do visualizations and graphs. Next, it's Power BI. So Power BI is, of course, dashboarding. So this is more concerning if you're a data scientist, then you need to different visualizations to get right, visualization and graph measures and DAX. So DAX is sort of like a complex function language that is for Power BI if you want to do complex calculation or whatnot. The DAX language is for Power BI. Thirdly is SQL. SQL is you really have to really master SQL. And when we talk about mastering SQL and the databases in reality it can be quite complex. It's usually relational databases. So primary keys of SQL as well, and it goes beyond just the simple select from where. You have to oftentimes make a lot of CTL tables, so your common table expressions, a lot of subqueries. You have to do a lot of joining of tables, unions, right? So SQL is definitely a key skill that you have to mostly deal with every single day. And for programming language, I would say definitely is Python. Of course, there is also R, but R, I think it's more of an academic side of things, doing more statistics. But in practical industry, we use a lot of Python. I would say currently I'm working as a data scientist and I'm only using Python. Okay. And yeah, the libraries or the skills that you have to know is like Pandas. Pandas is one of, if not the core key libraries that you have to know because you are dealing with data in the form of tabular data, and Pandas is one of the best. Aside from Pandas, actually, I've also used a lot of Polars library. It's something similar to Pandas, but it's more efficient because it uses like the lazy frame. It's not a eager kind. It's basically an improved version of Polar. So if you have time, I think you can also look into the Polars library. Right. And Matplotlib. So once again, you as a data person, once you have done all your processes and analysis, you have to visualize them and figure out that library. All right. So Python is incredibly important. Next, aside from oops, you have to treat your data as a story, not just plain numbers, because you have to think of the perspective of your shareholders or your managers. Usually, they are someone that is more business minded and they just want to know the gist of it, right? They just want to know what's happening the inside. So you cannot be showing them A to Z. They just want to know from A to Z what's the key idea, what's the story, what's the narrative that you want to tell. So storytelling is very important to have and you have to craft your work with a narrative, and it's very important to also tailor your audience expertise. You have to know who your audience is, who are you presenting this project towards. Is it your colleague, is it your coworker? If it's your coworker, then it's fine, you can put as many technical jargon as you want. But if it's someone that is on the business sides, right, if it's your bosses, which are usually more business savvy, then you cannot be using the same kind of technical jargon. You have to use a different kind of explanation. So storytelling, it's all about translating all the numbers into a narrative and also tailoring those narratives towards your audience. Effective communications. So a very interesting thing that I had with my manager was I did ask him one time, right, if there is one skill that, you know, is the most important thing, what would it be? And his answer was effective communication, right? So effective communication is basically communicating with your colleagues, communicating with your stakeholders or your managers or your bosses, and ask them what is the actual, what do we want to come out, what's the outcome of this, clarify it. And you have to like lay down expectations and or clarify uncertainties, meaning that sometimes the project, they just want something simple, right? But you cannot misunderstand and then give something super complicated or over engineer stuff because they just wanted something very simple. So you cannot like assume, you have to just communicate and ask and say, okay, for this project, what do we specifically want? Okay, we want this. Is this correct? Right? Is it okay if I use this method? Da, 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 da? Is this the specific objective of this project? Right? You cannot assume, you cannot not communicate and just do based on what you think it's like. You have to really clarify. And I think this goes specific to what you guys are doing as well in your projects, right? In every single project, as a student that you give the requirements, there are very specific requirements. Okay, so for this project, there's this objective, there's this requirement, how many pages of slides, there's a time duration, 10 minutes. So these are also related to it, right? You cannot just present your slide and then you present for like 25 minutes because it's already communicated in the requirement that it should be 10 minutes max, right? So you have to bring, so this is very similar actually, what you guys have been doing with your projects, following the requirements. You just have to bring that to work later on, right? And to really enhance on that skill, effective communication, and always just communicate with the team. And lastly is structured thinking. I think this is incredibly important because oftentimes projects are complicated. The problems are complicated. And I think you guys have been doing this as well with your projects, right? When a project is given, usually there's like a long list of requirements, right? But you guys will definitely structure it. Or first we have to do introduction. First we have to do some research, right? Then we have to do data collection. Then we have to, do EDA on our data. Then we have to understand data, do data cleaning, da, da, da. So that is actually structured thinking, which you guys have already been doing, and bring that skill, enhance that skill, and then bring it. It's basically a lifelong skill that you very important to have right, in your career and all. Basically breaking problems into smaller chunks, being structured, and plan everything out before starting. Because oftentimes I know it's very exciting, you get a project, you get the data, then you do, but then at the end, only you realize, I actually forgot, to standardize my data, or I forgot to clean my data, right? So before you actually start doing the before you have your hands dirty, you plan things out first, be very structured. I'll do phase A, phase B, phase C, phase D first, right? Be very structured, be very detailed. So these are the things that I think as a student, you guys already have it, but continue to enhance because it's something that is a lifelong thing and it's very transferable as well, especially the power skill, regardless of, I think, where you are or which domain or what job you work, all these three skills applies, right? So yeah, the skills to really have lah. Next is more specifics on the platforms or the resources that I use. Essentially, I think learning, for example, is more the best way. Basically, from Kaggle, there's a lot of notebooks, examples, competitions that people publishes their work, so you can learn, observe, and understand how the approaches, how do they deal with the questions, how do they process the data, how do they train their models, how do they evaluate their models, how do they create the pipelines and all. And aside from that, there's Medium. Medium is more like an article where people usually write whatever projects that they have or any topics that they want. So, and the channels that I personally enjoy and watch as well, data analytics and data science. And for the book, I really recommend this book if you are really into data science, and it's a very practical book. It shows you step by step on how do you have very good data science workflow, how do you build models, how do you evaluate them, and also touch upon all the different key machine learning algorithms and all, but on a very practical perspective. So it's very applicable as a data scientist later in your work, because it basically takes the theoretical thing that you have learned and make it into a practical side of things, right? And also sometimes I listen to a podcast. It's called Machine Learning Guide. All right. Lastly, I guess I reaching to an end. So I shared what I've done in PayNet. I've shared the three core pillars of data science, data engineering, data analytics. I've shared, the key skills, the key takeaways for you guys. And then I shared the resources that I use. Now, more on a very general sense as well, sharing what next steps that you can take. Essentially find a domain. And I know this is essentially because you have to look at data in a way that is just way to the mean, right? It's just a mean to the goal. Basically, for example, when a project comes in, they say, we want to analyze the top restaurants in Malaysia, right? So you put a lot of different approaches and all to get the answer. But then at the end of the day, you still need to know a domain. Basically, if the project was about restaurant, then you have to really know what restaurant is. Okay, maybe that's a bad example. Maybe healthcare. Healthcare is an easier domain to explain, right? You really have to know the domain, like, essentially, because if you're not aware of the domain, then you can't really make the features or you can't really understand the data. So find a domain. But I think it's okay as a student or, the first few years of a career to really explore, because I'm also exploring. As I mentioned, I came from civil engineering, but currently I'm doing transactions, I'm doing finance, I'm doing payments, which is completely different. But as you progresses in your career, I think it's very important to find a niche, find a domain. So start now, explore. Currently you're a student, try to, all the different projects that you do throughout your undergraduate, make every project distinct, make every project unique. Don't sort of have overlaps. Don't like reuse project that you did from last sem or different courses. Reusing projects. I think it's very good if you can explore and try different types of domain, different type of projects, and eventually find a domain that you really like and put all your energy and emphasis to it and be sort of like a proficient or an expert in that domain. All right. And then that connects well to my second part, which is carry out projects that you love and document them in your portfolio. I would definitely say portfolio here, the easiest one is two, right? So first is LinkedIn. Basically have a LinkedIn profile and just start posting. Don't be shy. Don't feel small or don't compare yourself with any of your peers. Just post. Every achievement is an achievement. Every step is a step. It's something worth celebrating. Just share every single achievement, every single project, every single hackathon, or every single learnings that you have in your LinkedIn. Connect with people. And that's the first portfolio, the easiest one. Second is definitely GitHub. So if you do not have a GitHub yet, I would really encourage to have one and understand what GitHub is. And basically all of the projects that you have across your undergraduate, just upload them to GitHub and it becomes your portfolio, right? Yeah. And do more projects, explore, especially now with AI and vibe coding things. You have a lot I think a lot of students here are very, very creative. There's a lot of things they want to do, and it's much easier right now because of AI, the tools you can just prompt and they can help you achieve it. And from those projects is where you learn, right? So make many, many projects, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Always start small, start simple, and build upon it, right? The key term here is to just put effort and just do, right? Don't think about, the project is too simple or I need to make like a complicated project. No, like just start simple and put everything in your GitHub and have a portfolio. And lastly is networking and be visible, which sort of connects back to my first portfolio here, which was LinkedIn. I essentially have a LinkedIn. And I think as a student right now, you have a lot of liberty, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, go and explore, do different kind of programs or activities in your university life, right? Don't just because maybe not sure what your course is, but just because you're in computer science or just because you are in software engineering, then you limit your activities in hackathons. No, right? Go and explore, maybe do language related activities, uh, hiking or whatever. Just really explore, do networking, be visible, and just be a student, enjoy life, and explore, explore, explore. I think there was one more thing I wanted to say, but I lost my train of thought. Never mind. Yeah, I think that's about it. I lost my train of thought. Never mind. So, a final summary, I think that's about it. Yeah. Behind every data is a story. You decide the narrative. So before I think we go to a Q&A, last summary of the key knowledge or the key takeaways from today. So I shared about myself, about what the works that I do in PayNet, and then the three main core division of data science, data analytics, data engineering. And I shared the skills that you must really master, which are, the technical skills, Excel, Power BI, SQL, Python, and then the soft skills or the power skills, your effective communication, your structured thinking, and then also to have a portfolio, and lastly to really be out there, explore, start networking, and yeah, just put a lot of effort. Yeah, I guess that ends my sharing, and open to the floor for any question and answers. If you have, you can just type in the chat as well or ask directly.
Okay, please ask question, everyone. Hello, ask question, anything. It does not have to be, you know, about the topics today or anything that you curious sepanjang study you ke, you nak tanya future macam mana nak cari kerja kat Penet ke, go ahead. So,
Yeah, I saw a question. Why is SQL used in data work? What about Python? Equally important. They work hand in hand together. SQL, it's more of querying your data. So your database, you have millions of transactions. I mean, millions of data. But SQL is where you just want to take a very small subset, maybe 100 data points out of that million of data. So that's where SQL comes in. It's basically querying the thing that you want to look for. And Python, it's creating pipelines, training models. So you can think of it, maybe SQL is the first step to get the data. Then Python is the second step to build the model, to clean or to do any application based on the data. So both are equally important for data work, SQL and Python. Okay, next question is, can I ask what made you jump from civil engineering to data science? I think that's a very good question. I did a research internship in civil engineering. I was doing concrete, right? I was basically testing different recipe for concrete to get the best recipe for concrete that is the strongest, right? That has the highest strength essentially. And every time I do the testing, there is data that comes in and I have to record the data. So from there, that's where my sort of first exposure that I get with data. And I can really see it's very interesting, basically, the data and like drawing visualizations. So that's where it sparked my interest to, to data related work and data science, essentially. But to expand further, data science is actually in every single field, in every single domain, including civil engineering. So one prominent one is crack classification. So there's pictures, right? Picture of concrete, cement, and then the model uses computer vision to see if this picture has a crack or not. Then we can train the model and we apply it on real world. We go to the buildings and then can see if there's cracks, then it can give early prevention, early warning, right? So yeah, my transition was because I had an interest during my internship. The third one is usually Paynet process their data locally or over the cloud. So we have two. It's a hybrid mode. So locally, usually called on-prem. We do have our own data center. And over the cloud, so in here, the typical cloud providers, there are three, right? They are Google, so GCP, Google Cloud Platform. There are Azure, Microsoft. And the third one is AWS by Amazon. And majority of companies out there, I would say, uses AWS, including Paynet. So we do process all our data and a mix of both. There is some in our own data center and also some stored in the S3 or S3, the data warehouses, data lake in AWS. How long will it take to process all the data transaction in a day in Paynet? Actually, our process is instantaneous. So it's not like a batch where, we have 20 million transactions a day and then we wait until the end of the day to process all the 20 million. It's immediately. So every time you pay your Do It Now QR, it gets processed instantly. That's why like you transfer money to your friend, right? They get it immediately. Yeah, so it's instantaneous and immediately. So yeah, because I think the one that you are referring to is sort of on the bank side of things, which is a settlement where they wait until the end of day, like credit card, right? They wait until the end of day, then they process. But in PayNet, we don't have credit card. We only have debit, and everything is instantaneous. None of it is like batch processing. Okay, so you highlighted specific features like DAX for Power BI and CTE for SQL. So in a professional data environment, which of these technical sub skills do you find junior analysts struggle with the most? I think SQL, because it can be quite complex, especially dealing with how dealing with like relational databases. You can have like 20, 30 databases, and then I wouldn't say the syntax itself, it's more of understanding what each table does and understanding which is the primary key, which is the foreign key. How do you match table A with table B? Because you also have to consider each table is under a database and there's hundreds of databases, hundreds of tables, right? So you have to know which table to match. So I think that would be a steepest learning curve, like essentially when you come into a company, there's just so many information and you have to do your study to understand each table and how do you match them, the primary key, the foreign keys. Is the data is being shared with AWS? I think this is on the AWS side of things. I think what you are referring to is data privacy, right? Encryption. So from my understanding, AWS, all the data are highly encrypted. None of it AWS actually sees. It's because right now we are using the cloud services from AWS, so we have to understand how AWS does the encryption and abide, not abide, like, yeah, we do our own research and see is AWS service the best for us, and I think we have done it and it's the best because it's, you know, it's very fast, very quick, and everything it's encrypted like essentially. So the data is not being shared with AWS. They don't have the visibility on the data, and everything is encrypted. I would like to just also share all the data is actually encrypted. So even if, so encryption is very important because the data that we come in and come out, right, it's all, it has the name of the sender, the receiver. So my name, your name, and those are what we call PII, sensitive information. So all these sensitive information have to be encrypted, has to be hashed, and all of it, we do exercise the best practices and encrypt all of the values, right? So even if it's stored in AWS or whatnot, it's encrypted. Yeah. Oh, I currently working from home, doctor. Yeah. Um, I'm not in my office, unfortunately.
Anybody, please ask more question. We still have time. Anything, maybe you want to do your latihan industri ke, practical training, maybe you can ask, or you want to know about communication since it's very important in, you know, I keep on telling you, right, the basic of human is communication. I keep on telling you that you go and take some small courses, like maybe 50 ringgit course on communication, because that is a basis, very basis of in a working environment or human nature. Okay, anybody want to ask anything else? Please ask. I import susah-susah tau. And free. Faiz with us for free. UiTM does not give any single cent for him to share his knowledge. Okay, continue next question.
All right, so the next question, thank you so much for that question. It's about internship opportunities. I think there is, just to be honest, there is a change of management. Basically, our CEO changed, and then when, when CEO change, a lot of things changes. Currently, they it's sort of free for internship applications, but I think they will open it up soon because we actually do receive a lot of interns before the new CEO come in. It was like a lot, and yeah, I think just stay up to date with the LinkedIn on Paynet. I mean, Paynet's Paynet account on LinkedIn. And a very interesting thing is that the internship is very broad. So if you are interested in software engineering, we have it. If you're interested in like data engineering, data analytics, if you're interested in QA, you're interested in platform, you're interested in front-end UI, back-end, DevOps, you have all the positions up, yeah, for any internship. It's very, it's a lot lah, yeah. Oh, this is a very good question though, Daniel. Is it hard to pivot from software development to data related fields? I think, right, there's a saying where they always say the best data scientists are ex-software engineers. And I can finally understand why it is. So if you are a software developer, software engineer, I think you are actually have a very, very big advantage to pivot into data science or data engineering because a lot of times people that purely, I mean students or one of the people that just purely know data related and they have never have a background in CS or software engineering, they lack the logic or they lack the system design, they lack a lot of basically key principles of writing codes, of understanding systems, because they are used to just they are very good at the theoretical side of things and they are used to calling libraries, like import scikit-learn and then just import this, import that, but they don't really understand the concepts, the very important key concepts of programming, which a lot of software engineers do. For example, classes or OOP programming, or why do you select a certain system design, like maybe factory design or a builder design or singleton, something like that. So if you are someone that already have an experience and really familiar with software engineering principles and concepts, then it's actually a very, very big advantage because the programming side of things, you have an edge like against the other people that only know the theoretical side of things. So I would say it's more of because data science or data, as I mentioned, is an intersection of many things, right? There's domain knowledge, programming, and statistics. So now you already have a very, very solid foundation in programming, and the domain knowledge definitely it's something you just pick up naturally. So now you just need to learn the statistics or data side something, and I wouldn't say it's hard. I think it's really an advantage, and you should leverage on the advantage.
We still have time. Please ask question. Anything related. Maybe some of you are going to latihan industry. Maybe you want to ask how to prepare yourself for anything. Because I always take my speaker always young, so that you have a peer-to-peer sharing rather than I take professor. I think the age gap is quite big, and also the how to say the career gap also quite big. This one is peer-to-peer. You can ask anything. Is Faiz single? Another cepu mas question.
All right. All right. Okay, then there's a question from Akil. Which industry field have the most job opportunities? I would definitely, speaking from my experience, I would say in the financial or banking field, and specifically for like risk management. So usually data, they usually go into speaking of data science and data, usually it's the risk and compliance, risk management, or like risk profiling, and it's the most prevalent one because all the banks require that division. All the banks require someone that can help them with fraud. All the banks require someone that can help them with risk profiling. So risk profiling is saying, or credit profiling. So all the banks, they provide loan, car loan, house loan. So they need someone that can help them when a applicant come in, they want to apply for a house loan or a car loan. They need someone to able to analyze the data of that profile of that customer and say, should we give a loan to this customer and how many percent, right? Or will this person pay their loan on time? So those are risk and credit profiling, which I think a lot of bank requires, and it's really everywhere. It's like HR, like, it's actually like human resources. It's everywhere in every company. So look into risk. I think risk in general, it's something that is present in every single company and finance industry definitely. And fintech as well. It's a very exciting time to be fintech, you know. For example, I'll just give a few fintech startups. So I have a friend that do tax. He has a startup. He created an application to do tax, which is your chukai. So every year you have to do your chukai to claim. You have to submit your chukai to the government, right? But a lot of times there is no. I think in Malaysia we don't really have a platform yet or an application. You have to do it manually. You know, you track your tax or your chukai or your receipts and all. So what my friend did, he actually created an application for that. So yeah, so there's his startup. It's a application that helps tracks your tax, your receipts, and also that's fintech is very exciting lah. Yeah. What Ashraf, so Ashraf Haikal. So what's a skill from civil engineering you didn't expect to actually use in data science? Oh, okay. So I think civil engineering, it's a very general, I'll give a general answer, not a specific one. Doing engineering, it's trains you to become very structured because when you solve problem, you go step by step, A to B to C to D to E. As I mentioned earlier, that's one of the key skills that I also, the key takeaway to develop is structured thinking, right? Because when you do data work, for example, data cleaning, it's also step by step, right? You first take in the data, then you check, is the data missing? You check the data type. Then if it's missing, then you have to impute, you have to fill in a missing value. Then you have to make sure data type are correct. For example, if it's a integer, it has to be integer, it cannot be a string, even though it's 1, 2, 3, it could be a string, right? So that's the biggest thing that I get from doing engineering degree. It's a very structured mindset. Everything has to go in order. And it's really, really important because at work or projects, things can get very complicated here and there. So you have to have that structured mindset to structure things and know how things fit lah. So structured mindset, structured thinking. Okay, so another question from Umar Hazim. If you could go back and give yourself one advice as a fresh data analyst, what would it be? Thank you. That's a very good question. I think data analysts to mm, mm, to I think it's a general lah. I wouldn't say just specific to data analysts, right? I think generally to it's just a human to human advice. I would say to just constantly keep working and don't be complacent because I also sort of started as data analyst, right? Then I progressed into data science, and that's quite a big jump. And before even data analyst or whatnot, I was civil engineering, right? But I was never complacent, as in, oh, I took civil engineering, so I have to work as an engineer. I have to work in construction, right? I actually upskill myself. I explore other stuff. I don't limit myself just because I studied engineering. I work in engineering. No, right? I put a lot of effort into successfully pivoting from engineering to data. So I think it's more of a general, broad advice I would give to everyone, including myself here, is to never be complacent. Complacent here means that like selesa with what you have now, right? You always have to dream big, be ambitious, be what they call the Lulu. I think the Lulu is very important. Just be as the Lulu as you have to be the Lulu. You have to say, one day I have to be CEO, one day I want to work in Microsoft. Only then you actually put in the effort, right? Every single day to upskill and continually be better lah. So uh I think yeah, that's a general advice lah I would give myself, which I actually practice like every day. So never be complacent and always be the Lulu lah. Yeah.
Maybe you just want to share how many hours you work outside your office, maybe at home or something, because you want to keep on, learning new things. And then you do definitely when you go to office, they just guide you a certain level, and then after that you have to explore on yourself, right? So how this continuous learning, how you handle this continuous learning, and how much time or effort that you put into it?
Just every time when you go to work, there's always something new that you always learn something new, right? Also new key concepts. Then you take that key concept, you go back home, you do a further study on it. And I think it's actually a prime time now. And it's very fortunate because all of us have all the tools and how advanced and useful AI is in help us to learn. So I do spend a lot of time after work to really upskill. Like if you change your perspective and change it, not learn because of exam, but you learn it because of knowledge. You learn it because you know that knowledge, it's I think also it's your, what is it, amana, as as a student or as a basically a human on earth. You have to constantly learn, strive, and progress, develop. So if you change that perspective and you don't just view whatever you learn now for exam, but you do it as a long term, as something that is just valuable for you as a person. Yeah, so that's what I do. I just change the perspective, then I learn all the different things and just use AI to leverage AI and help me with my learnings. Okay, so this is a very good question. I'm Ahmad Zahir. It's about AI, right? In your work, Ahmad Zamir. In your work, how many % of it do you use AI help? I think AI at the end of the day is a tool that just validates or help you get to your end. It's just one of the means, right? I definitely use it very frequently because it's not like I abuse it. It's not like I just, type or throw in the data set and I say, can you do the EDA for me? Yeah, no, I would look at the data. I would do my EDA myself. I plan it out. I'll do my first thing and then only use AI to validate whether my approach is correct, or use AI and ask it, I have done this. Can you find other perspective that I can look at to improve it, right? So that's how I use AI. I would say definitely a lot. I think a lot of my colleagues use AI as well, but it's not really the question of you use it or you don't use it, how many percent. It's a question of how you use it. But I definitely say a very, very high percentage that I use AI, and it helps tremendously actually in a daily work. Nur Aina, what cert do you think help in order to land a job in data analytics or in any data field? I think AWS related certificates are very valuable. The cloud practitioner, because when you go into a big company, a lot of things are cloud, so cloud computing, that's definitely there. So if you are familiar with cloud services, cloud computing, the AWS cloud practitioner certificate will give a big advantage. Then you also understand better how cloud computing and cloud services work. So I definitely say cloud related certificate. Yeah. Or right now I think there's Google Data Analytics as well. Or yeah, so it can be any cloud related like AWS or Google. Google has, I think, free, no mistaken, for students to get the certificate. So I think those are very valuable.
Okay, ask some more. Ask. We still have like 5 more minutes. It's not every time I can invite Cik Faiz to our to the webinar. Please ask ladies, gentlemen. Maybe you can share with us about, you say, fault detection, right? Just now you say more on the analyze of the crack in the building and so on, right? From your experience from civil engineering, maybe you can share with that, because maybe some of the student can use it in their future work and so on. That is a very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So for detection, it's essentially using images to classify whether a building has cracks or not. And I think the common one is using CNN modeling, right? So it's part of AI. Yeah, but yeah. Um, yeah. Because what I
Okay.
did last time in internship was
Uh-huh.
it's more not really modeling, it's more of just testing out different recipes of concrete and then just track the strength. It's more like a linear regression kind of. If I add ingredient A more, ingredient B less, what would the strength be? Yeah, so it's more of a, it's not fault detect, it's more like strength, like linear regression. Yeah.
So in other words, the statistic is very important
Yep.
in data processing. So one more question, please. Anyone? Last question? Yeah, surely you want to ask beyond, maybe beyond data science, or maybe just a peer-to-peer. How to survive in this world? How to, maybe you can share. Maybe I heard last time Faiz helped someone to apply for a job, and then he trained this person how to, attend an interview. And fortunately, this person get a good job lah. This is a person who already have experience. His colleague. This is what I heard. His colleague who already have experience lah. I mean, looking for a better job, and then he end up with a good job. So maybe you can advise our student how to go for interview, especially some of them have to go through interview for latihan industry, practical training, and also maybe future work.
Yeah, so I think a very general interview question preparation is definitely practice and research on the company and really explain why you want to work there, what basically the value that you can bring to the company, or basically like you, especially intern, right? You go in there, you say like, oh, I'm interning here because I'm interested in doing this specific project. For example, giving mine fraud, right? You can come to PayNet and say, I want to intern in PayNet because I'm interested in doing fraud detection, fraud scam detection, right? And the reason why I'm interested, then you explain because I've done certain projects in this, and yeah, you basically be you have to know what you want to gain from that internship and then really share this very specific. Don't like be general, be very specific, which specific projects you're interested in or what makes you interested in that company. Then explain to them if you were working there, what kind of changes or what kind of value or what kind of projects you want to do, and bring them end to end, not just say, oh, I come here, I want to do fraud or scam detection, right? You have to be prepared. You say, I come here because I'm interested in scam detection. Then you explain very detailed, elaborate. You say why, and then what model you want to use, what's the impact to society. So be very specific and also really show eagerness, show enthusiasm. So those are, I think, companies they really look for, like essentially they look for students that are prepared, that know why they are here, and not just they are here because they have to do it, right? You have to show that you are really interested.
So you mean you have to study the background of the company?
Yes.
Okay, we have one final question there from Muhammad Izzat.
Yeah. So do you always find it fascinating to deal with data set? Yes, I think it's a very interesting experience because when you receive a data set, it's there's no straight answer, right? It's very subjective. You have, for example, 200 columns, right? You have 10,000 rows. What do you do with it? It's up to you what kind of insights you want to gain out of it. Out of that 200 columns, how many columns do you want to use? So it's very fascinating because there's no right or wrong. It depends on what insights you want to get, what story, as I mentioned, it's all about storytelling, what narrative you want to drive from the detective from, and you can do so many things from it. You not just can, as an analyst, you can just analyze and you get visualization, different graphs, different understanding. But as a scientist, you can then create machine learning projects. You can do prediction, and as an engineer, from that data set, you can, you know, pipelines from source A to source B. So it's very, very fascinating. And there's so many tools as well. Like, why do you use tool A, not tool B? Why do you use Python, not R, right? So it's just up to you to explore. Yeah, it's very, very fascinating and fun.
Okay, one last question. What maybe you should can give advice how to write a good storytelling with data.
Oh, okay. So I think a very important thing is to not state facts, not just state numbers, but state the impact of it. For example, my specific project, I did fraud. So when we do fraud, when we predict scam accounts, when account is stopped, we actually know how much money is recovered. We are able to recover it, right? So you don't just say, for example, oh, for January we recovered 200,000 ringgit, right? Maybe you change the narrative. You don't just state numbers, you change narrative. So in January, 200 ringgit of like rakyat hard-earned money was given back to them, right? Was saved, right? So you have to add the importance or the impact, like 200,000 ringgit, what's the impact? It's impact because it's someone's hard-earned money, right? Or impact because it's, it can be used to, that 200,000 is used to, buy a car, buy a house, right? So you have to, basically every time you do your storytelling, you have to emphasize on the impact and not just purely stating numbers. And yeah.
Yeah, similarly, in our class, I already tell them remember after you tell the story, I mean the trend, you see the trend going up, going down of the graph, and then you must support with evidence, and then you have a conclusion, and then what is the meaning of this? Most of students lacking on that one. Most of you lacking. You just give the number. Oh, this one going out, this one going down. Like in the test that day kan, dengue going up, dengue going down, and so on, right? But you did not really mention the impact of it. What does it mean behind this? So similarly, what Faiz said just now, you have to see the impact of it. Most of you, yes, not most. I think a few of you, most of you doing well. Okay, so any other question? Final. Apa? Actually, I got one question I want to ask, but I forgot already. Um, I think since anybody want to ask anymore? Last. Tak ada, okay. Kalau tak ada, I think that's all lah for our sharing session today. And I represent all my students and UiTM would like to say to thank you lah for your time and your knowledge, your sharing session. And I believe it's very it's very fruitful for us with all this knowledge, because most of our students, we just using data, that is, we say clean data, mostly clean data, and our setting is a small setting. But I believe you say last time, one day PayNet receive how many data in? You say 1 million.
Yeah, 20 to 30 million, 30 million.
Per day.
Yeah, per day. A year is 12 billion.
12 billion. You just imagine, one day 20 to 30 million data. And then for us, our data is not a streaming data. For them, it's a streaming data. Streaming data maksudnya data continuously come in and continuously you have to analyze. So actually, what we have learned in class, even though it's just a prototype, what you do is a prototype. You get, experience from a small data. And then from this, you can expand lah. Maybe like I say lah, maybe you should work more on the storytelling. Enhance back your storytelling. Okay, I think that's all from us. Can we give applause to uh, Cik Faiz? Maybe can give love sikit. I love. Love is my, how to say, my communication. Yeah, we have got a lot of love. Okay. Uh, Thank you, thank you. So for my class, you wait. Tonight I will give you question and then you have to submit it by Friday. 2-3 hari pun cukup lah because I don't want to touch your study week. Your study week, focus on your study. We finish semua by week 14. Okay, bye-bye. Assalamualaikum you all. Have a nice evening and also have a nice weekend. Wednesday dah boleh think of weekend dah. Enjoy your durian. Now durian tengah murah-murah ni. Faiz tak makan durian. Betul. You don't eat durian, Faiz.
Yeah, not really.
Sangat merugikan. Okay. Okay, bye-bye you all. Okay, bye. Assalamualaikum.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, bye-bye you
Thank you,
all.
Miss.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Doctor.
Okay, bye.